In 2018, Undertale released for the Nintendo Switch, forever changing one of the original game's minor characters. What was once a simple mini-boss with a hot temper transformed into something new, crushing several years of assumptions in the process. This fiery pincushion went from a mere training dummy into a feisty feline, yet to this day some do not even know of Mad Mew Mew's existence, and some even push back at the idea that she and Mad Dummy are one and the same. So in this video, I'll discuss this character in depth, and why her transformation into Mad Mew Mew means so much to people. Mad Dummy. As a quick disclaimer, I'll be referring to Mad Dummy as she, her, along with Mad Mew Mew. They're the same character, and with Mad Mew Mew's transcoding, it really doesn't make sense to use her previous pronouns. With that out of the way, let's start at the beginning. We're first introduced to Mad Dummy in the Waterfall Dump. Here, you are presented with a few options. You can hit the dummy, decline hitting it, and simply walk past it. This all affects her initial dialogue during the encounter. Seems simple enough anyway, as the Ruins dummy didn't do anything back at the start of the game, but as you reach the end of the trash dump, the Mad Dummy makes her grand appearance. Her dialogue here branches as well, based on how you treated the training dummy in the Ruins. Maybe you scared her cousin out of their body by saying mean things. Maybe you destroyed her cousin's vessel. Maybe you just annoyed them through aimless shenanigans. But no matter what you did, she's furious with you and how you treated her unnamed, unseen cousin. It's enough to provoke her into battle. Except in the Genocide run, where her rage sets her off so much that she becomes corporeal, transforming into Glad Dummy and becoming spareable instantly. Bonding with vessels is a crucial part of ghost monster culture, which also comes up in the dialogue branch if you would attack the Ruins dummy. We also learn from Mettaton's diary that multiple ghosts within his and Blueky's family have left to bond with dummies, so it seems that these are the most accessible bodies for ghosts to bond to, and are sort of a tradition. But through her fight, Mad Dummy's focus shifts. She states her goal plainly. She'll take Frisk's soul to cross the barrier and sit in the window of a fancy store, and in the process, she derails from her initial goal of vengeance for her cousin, even forgetting their name. Was this even about her cousin in the first place? The fight on the whole is very comedic, with Mad Dummy bossing her bullets around and berating them when they fail to meet her standards. She also has an iconic speech quirk of repeating words and phrases 3 times in a row with increasing intensity, which is also reflected in the way her battle theme repeats melodic phrases in a similar fashion. Have a listen. The use of this speech quirk, along with her knife attack at the end of the fight, makes many associate her with Dio from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and also have many assuming that she was a male character, despite the game only and consistently referring to her as they and it at this point. But back then, we didn't have Mad Mew Mew, and many just assumed that neutral pronouns meant gender was interpretive. This also applies to Napstablook, who is also only referred to as they-them. Her personality archetype is also one people traditionally see as masculine due to media tropes, which also contributed to this despite Undyne sharing a very hot-headed and bombastic attitude. The closest these two characters share might have even inspired Mad Dummy's persona a bit, or perhaps she simply sees a kindred spirit with Undyne in that regard, as both are fiery and loud. Regardless, it's worth noting that she's not really a strategist, given that she only brings a single knife into battle, and her only fallback is keeping Frisk trapped in an endless loop due to her incorporeal status. This of course fails when Napstablook arrives and scares her off. She's later found outside Undyne's house, revealing that she is in fact Undyne's training dummy. Outside of this, Mad Dummy doesn't factor much into Undertale's base story. She's a simple and memorable character, but one whose connections in history would not be expanded upon until subsequent releases and extra content. Enter Mad Mew Mew. The year is 2018. Undertale Switch has just come out, and the players discover that instead of the Dog Shrine, there's a new optional boss. At first, it's unclear who or what this is beyond a doll of Mew Mew Kissy Cutie. However, after a few interactions, this character makes her identity all too clear. The familiar speech quirk, the hot-headed demeanor, the way she talks about having a brand new body, this character isn't a new one at all. It's our old friend Mad Dummy, and she's ready to bond with the body of her dreams. But as hinted at in the Genocide run, she needs the right emotional cocktail, which at this point she assumes is anger and adrenaline. We learn through her dialogue that she acquired the body from Alphys' lab. The second she saw it, she knew it was her, and she gave up her dummy body to bond with it instead. She doesn't see it as theft, but rather rescue, as her bonding with the body to find true happiness is preferable to the doll being used for experiments or other weird purposes. She's the heroine of her own story, and is pumped for the new life ahead of her. She fully embraces her new identity, peppering her dialogue with the occasional mews and meows, and confidently calling herself the cutest Dullahan when attacked. Even then, her battle contains many nods to her former identity, with flavor text describing her looking into a fancy pink mirror, then glaring at you with the same expression, and a reference to ska dancing. Not only is this further cemented with her revealing that yes, she is Undyne's training dummy, but we learn that she has a crush on her and greatly enjoys when Undyne uses her as a pincushion for spears. However, I think one of the most crucial character moments is when she learns Undyne already has someone, and she passionately supports them rather than lashing out in anger. It shows that despite her hot-headedness, Mad Mew Mew's anger isn't toxic. Ultimately, however, anger is not enough for her to bond, which I think is perhaps the most profound part. Her battle isn't resolved through conflict, but compassion, and in the mercy route, you help her see that love and more positive emotions are a healthier way for her to become one with her new form. It isn't immediate, but she's taking steps toward genuine happiness and self-acceptance. As I said before, Mad Mew Mew is a trans allegory, much like Mettaton, and her euphoria at seeing the Mad Mew Mew body and her desire to be herself have resonated with many people. However, my own relationship with gender is complicated and personal, and I don't feel like my voice is the best authority to discuss this. Because of that, I turned to my Discord server and Twitter and reached out to trans friends and followers about what makes Mew Mew special to them. Mad Mew Mew as a trans allegory. One of my Twitter followers, Rainy D, put it very well here. A part I really love about Mad Mew Mew is that even with the good ending, she doesn't immediately fuse with her body. Her new body isn't just a literal metaphor for transitioning, but gender identity in general. Even when you realize you're not cis, it takes time to realize what exactly you identify with. Lots of trans people first test out pronouns to see what they're comfortable with. Some change labels a lot. It's difficult to figure out your place on a spectrum, and the relationship between gender pronouns, masculinity, and femininity takes a lot of time to understand. I'm pretty comfortable with what I identify with, yet even I haven't figured out everything about my gender. So yeah, it's a powerful message that Mad Mew Mew accepts who she is, but it still takes time for her to completely fuse. Others had similar insight. For example, Luna Harime said, "I like Mad Mew Mew. I think she's good trans rep, and I appreciate her transition being gradual in a way. It takes her time to get used to her new body, and she learns that she has to do it differently than she thought had to be the way too. For such a wild character, she has a pretty grounded transition, in my opinion. It took me some time to figure out everything about myself, and I'm still learning some new stuff too sometimes. There's really nothing I dislike about her." Another said, "She's basically the first notable trans femme character in media I like, which is really appreciated because there's not exactly much of positive trans rep. The way she's been sort of a trans icon in the Undertale fandom, and people could relate to her, was also great." One member in the Inverted Fate server added, "She's great. I really love her boss fight too, and how it's this perfect mix of her experiencing her gender euphoria, being just genuinely excited to murder a child, and failing to get mad and being frustrated about that. Plus, it's just nice seeing her being alive and doing well in the Xbox and alarm clock content. She fits really well into the world too and all that jazz. Hell, I'd say her being in the game improves it in a lot of ways. She makes Mettaton go from maybe transis to yeah, he's definitely trans. She makes Mad Dummy retroactively a far better character. And she's like, different, but she's still Mad Dummy personality-wise. Same person, just happier." I think that last bit is especially important. Transitioning doesn't mean you have to abandon everything about who you are. Just because she's a cute cat girl now and openly enjoys femininity doesn't mean she has to alter every little thing about her personality to be valid. In the Xbox version of the game, she's in a happier place, but still remains as eccentric and hot-headed as ever. One user, Marianne, came to me with more insight, specifically about Mad Mew Mew's anger. She said, "I can say I relate a lot to her, being more prone to anger and toxicity until I started to better understand myself. Until I started feeling happy about myself, I could never quite project my emotions the way I wanted, and I'd be too quick to get frustrated and defensive with people, especially when I felt like they saw me the wrong way. The first interaction in the dummy body, if I remember correctly, usually had her saying something about Frisk making assumptions. I don't remember the specific line, so feel free to correct me there. With the casino, you can really see Mad Mew Mew thriving. Happier to be presenting to others and more confident that they see her the way she wants." As we talked, we also focused on her initial bonding with a dummy body and how it's a tradition among ghost monsters to bond with them. Therefore, her initial body could be seen as her sticking to the expected presentation and norms of ghost society, right down to retaining her initial genderless pronouns. While the Mew Mew body cracked her egg, so to speak, and made her realize that no, she isn't happy being a dummy. This doll is who she truly is. On that note, Glad Dummy may be happy in the moment, but when recontextualized through Mew Mew, there's a tragic element to her bonding with a body that won't bring her as much happiness, only to get struck down. Luckily, Toby is a fantastic ally, and rather than making Mew Mew non-canon to other versions of the game, he went all in and made Mew Mew canon to both the PC and Xbox ports in different ways. So let's talk about that. after the battle. If you visit her outside Undyne's house in the Switch version of the game, she's very ecstatic about her new body and looking forward to the future. She talks about wanting to compete with Mettaton, which ties into some later information in the Xbox and alarm clock text. In the Xbox version of Undertale, Mew Mew takes over the dog casino after you battle Mettaton EX. She's happy and excited to be working her first job, even if it doesn't pay, and reveals that she's been duplicating dog residue to sell later. It's awesome to see her taking charge of her life, and reacting kindly and graciously towards Frisk. It shows that she's taking what she learned in her fight and growing little by little. Another example of her business and brand goals appears with the GamerBox camera. She plans to charge money for selfies as a way to promote her brand. Good for her! The casino also sheds more depth into her characters in other ways. For instance, with the dog statue, she alludes to a nice ghost who could use a body. Whether she means the Ruins dummy, Nastabluke, or even Mettaton's ghost self is unclear, but her love of knives remains strong, even with her embracing her femininity. We see more of her budding rivalry and resentment with Mettaton when you interact with the fast food box. Not only that, but she shows a disdain for Burger Pants, finding him creepy for his staring, despite her weird habits like rotating her head. She also cuts pictures of MTT out of the menus and replaces them with herself, showing her bold ambitions in competing with the old box on wheels. The beauty cream interaction reveals an interesting aspect about ghost biology, namely that as long as they are incorporeal, they can't taste anything. Thus, Mew Mew loves eating beauty cream, even if it is MTT branding. And yes, she did indeed try to screw Burger Pants' head on after he stared at her for it. Her disdain for Mettaton may partially be a bluff, as she acts anxious when you point out the MTT ticket to her, but she also reveals a closeness to Nastabluke here, revealing that Mettaton influences them poorly, and admitting that she left Blukey behind just like Mettaton did, and has yet to face them and reveal her true self. Or the fact that she's been their neighbor the whole time. Unlike Alphys, she prefers Mew Mew Kissy Cutie 2 over the original, and is familiar with the video games. She even gets into arguments with Alphys over which version of Mew Mew is canon, with Alphys taking issue with her more brazen personality and love of knives. Mew Mew, however, declares herself as the canon Mew Mew, all while revealing her body's poor construction and tendency to emit smoke. Through the GamerBox reaction, we learn further that her body can interfuse with the Mew Mew video game, and the voice box inside her says phrases in conjunction with it. Alphys tried using this feature to find where the missing Mew Mew doll went, but Mad Mew Mew used it to her advantage to jump scare the poor lizard girl. Their relationship is definitely one with a bit of friction at first. But with her voice box requiring batteries to avoid turning creepy and demonic, Mew Mew is stuck between two options for self-care. Either forcing Burger Pants to try and make her a battery smoothie, or going to Alphys. The latter is less ideal to her, but it's entirely possible that she does get help maintaining her body from the royal scientist, despite their disagreements. We see that she still cares deeply about Undyne through the baseball cap interaction, as well as showing an interest in fashion. She believes Undyne would look great in a baseball cap. It's a very cute moment mixed in with all the zaniness. But Mew Mew's presence expands beyond the console ports. There's Famitsu artwork commemorating the game's 5th anniversary, which includes artwork of her and Mettaton competing at DDR. We also learn that post-Pacifist, Mew Mew is a successful streamer, and Alphys seems to view her in a more positive light, even watching her shows. She also handled the music at the Monsters' Christmas party, and in Mettaton's Winter Alarm Clock dialogue, he talks about how he and Mew Mew got into a dramatic chainsaw battle, showing their rivalry at full force. Their intense showdown distresses Nastabluke enough that the two cease fire, and they share an awkward moment where they discuss Undyne and Alphys' relationship. This shows that Mew Mew still hasn't fully moved on, and even suggests that MTT might have had a small thing for Alphys, or it could just be close platonic care. They also can't enjoy ghost beverages, so perhaps Mew Mew is fully corporeal by then, given the ghost sandwich in the original game and Frisk's inability to eat it. But this begs the question, if Mew Mew is the canon fate of the character, why does she appear as the dummy in the Xbox version's credits? Simply put, it's likely an oversight due to the Mew Mew fight not being in the game, and thus her battle sprite not being included. Plus, if you look at the amalgamates in all versions of Undertale's credits, Snowdrake's mom is eerily absent, despite the fact that Memory Head shows up. However, once she appears in the casino, she does disappear from outside Undyne's house, making her fate here incredibly clear. And if that's still not enough, with the numerous references to her past as the Mad Dummy, if you fill the casino with fluff, she'll do a direct reference to her dummy fight and how she attacked Frisk with cotton balls. And while it's likely she doesn't have the Mew Mew body at this point in Deltarune, I think the separation of her character from Mew Mew and Dummy and the ghost that sometimes occurs in the fandom ignores the nuance to who she is. She became a much more developed person through additional content and expansions. Her Mew Mew body is the form she's happiest in, and I for one embrace Mew Mew for being such a fun, empowering, and refreshing character. Feisty and hot-headed with a love of knives, yet not afraid to look cute and feminine. Just like Undyne, Asgore, Ralsei, and other characters in Toby's catalog. A lot of gender conventions are bucked in the first place, and Mew Mew is a breath of fresh air compared to other characters throughout video games. Plus, she's just a lot of fun. So I hope this video helped you learn a bit more about this fiery cat girl and brought some new appreciation. If you have any thoughts on the character, please do leave a comment below. Likes, shares, and subscribes all help boost this in the algorithm, which would be a great help as my channel is still growing. And if you'd like to see scripts and early access to other content I produce, you can head over to my Patreon and even get your name featured on screen like these fine folks here. Lastly, we have a remaster of the Inverted Fate Mad Mew Mew fight on the way. While we don't have an exact release, beta testing is underway, and I'm excited to share when the time comes. You can catch a link to Inverted Fate in the description and in the end screen. With all that said, I'll see you next time, when I can hopefully get that Alphys video underway. And probably more Inverted Fate music. It's been a while, so feel free to suggest tracks that I made to upload here. Thanks again, and have a great day.